Hello, and welcome back to Unfiltered Dissent, the podcast where creators challenge the narrative and boldly speak truth to power. Dissent isn't just disagreement, it's democracy in action. I'm Amy Zellmer, author, activist, and unapologetic truth teller. This is a space for creators and activists who stand in opposition to MAGA extremism and the forces trying to silence us. If you are someone who wants to resist injustice, this podcast is for you. Here we say the quiet parts out loud. No censorship, no sugarcoating, just raw, unfiltered truth. So let's get into it. Today, my guest is Kyla Turner, and we're talking all about Christian nationalism today. So, Kyla is a former addiction counselor, psychometrist. Is that how I pronounce that?
Sure, that works.
And current media consultant for the DNC. She spends a large amount of time debating in politically diverse spaces like Tim Pool or the Whatever podcast. So, welcome, Kyla.
Hi, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And we are also both part of the Unfuck America tour.
We
And so
are.
that's how we've gotten to know each other.
hmm
So excited to jump into this today. It's a topic I really haven't had anyone talk about on the podcast as far as Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
Um, and so maybe let's start by your definition of what that is.
I would say Christian nationalism specifically is a movement. It's kind of got a cloak and dagger. So there's some part of Christian nationalism that is just like, we just want Christian leaders, which is fine. You can have Christians who want Christian leaders. Christian nationalism at the most extreme end would want to replace democracy with an absolute theocracy, right? That would be the most extreme Christian nationalist. And you'll kind of see a scale in between all these. And so obviously when we're talking about concerning Christian nationalism, we're talking about people who are beginning to use Christianity as a way to limit democratic options or democratic movements as a result of their lack of affiliation with the Christian body. So if you make a rule that says all politicians must be Christian. Okay, well, that's moving in a really undemocratic direction.
Hmm. Yeah, I when we were in Tampa with the tour, I was at a table full of Christian nationalists. And so I'm like, "Hey, can I just ask you some questions, about where you stand on different things?" And I guess I was actually surprised, like, because I had made the comment, "Oh, so you don't want women to vote?" And they're like, "Well, we don't actually want anybody to vote. They basically want like a monarchy." Um,
hmm
and I'm like, "Oh, that's really interesting because that's not what our democracy is built on." Like, it's so interesting how they want to completely change how our democracy is run. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have the
Well, they don't want democracy.
Constitution. Well,
They want to get rid of it.
right, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
They want full control over it. Hmm.
Yep. They want like a monarchy, specifically a theocracy, right? They want like a religious theocracy, which you can look historically has always been a super great time for citizens. Yeah, it's a pretty, that is obviously the most extreme version of it,
Hmm.
right? And it goes all the way down to some level of like there should be Christian now values in law, for example. That would be a form of Christian nationalism that I actually also reject. So there's a lot of Christians who think that there should be laws based on what Christian principles are. They would go into things like abortion, for example. And I don't think that that's the place of the church. I don't
Hmm.
think that like law and rule of law is a good breeding place for religion to exist. I think they should be very separate entities. I'm very for separation of church and state maximally. And a Christian nationalist wants to see those bleed over as much as possible, with the most extreme, again, wanting a theocracy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting, especially into like today's political climate and how, you know, people want English, speak English. English is our language. And it's like, well, actually, no, we don't have a language. And you have to be Christian. No other religions are accepted here. And it's like, well, actually, no. It's just always so interesting to me how Christians think that their religion is like, the best religion. Um, and how no other religions are insignificant to them. And I think that's a dangerous place to be, right? Where we're not, um taking other religions into account. And like I really regret not taking more theology classes in college and learning, because back then I wasn't politically minded. I didn't care. And now I'm
Mhm.
like, I wish I knew more about lots of religions so that like I could refute people better on when they bring religion into conversations.
What did you take in college?
Journalism.
Okay. That's cool.
Yep.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Like any monotheistic religion. So you've got Judaism, like Judaism and most Abrahamic religions are monotheistic. There are other monotheistic religions, but the dominant ones are the three we know, right? Like Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Um, all of them are fundamentally um, mutually exclusive with other religions because of the nature of like monotheism, right? And to be fair, that's fine with me. I think it's fine to actually go like, I like my religion more. It's like, yeah, duh. Of course you do. Like, duh. Why else would you be a part
Right.
of it if you didn't think yours was the best and the most accurate, right? It'd be really silly if you're like, I'm a Christian, but like Buddhism, they've got it right. That would be very strange. Not that Buddhism is technically a religion, but that's not the issue. It's the issue of when it blends with state. Because now in statehood,
Yes.
now you can't be Muslim in the country. It's like, that's not the same thing. You're allowed to think that your religion is the best religion. That's totally
Hmm.
fine. I think that there's lots of reasons for Christians to be proud of their ancestry. And I think there's lots of reasons for people to dislike Christian ancestry, right? That's not the problem. The problem is when you insist that the state has to be blended. And in the case of Christianity, and I guess just to be super clear, I'm what's considered a postmodern radical Orthodox Christian. So I'm a Protestant, but I fall part of this very obscure form of theology that's a form of postmodern theology called radical Orthodoxy. Um, so anything you assume about me on the label Christian, you're probably wrong. Just saying. Anything you want to assume. And before every single Christian listening to this rolls their eyes and thinks I don't know my Bible, I know my Bible better than you do, 9 times out of 10. I know my Bible really well, which is why I've come to these decisions. But
Hmm.
the most important thing for me, the most important thing that's essential to Christianity, especially, is that Christianity has been, when it was written, right? Jesus was rejecting politics, he was rejecting statehood. The Jews killed him because they believed that he failed to be the Messiah because he didn't make a kingdom on earth, right? There was this talks about how the Messiah would bring kingdom on earth for Jews. Well, he didn't do that. He wasn't political. What did he say politically? Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. He said respect the authority that's oppressing you right now. That was Jesus's kind of beginning and end of political work. He wasn't interested in that whatsoever. And so when I see Christians insisting that this has to necessarily be political, it to me, I look at that and I go, why are we doing something that even Jesus didn't want to do? Like, why
Right.
are we doing this? We don't need to do this. And I think every time we see state and religion blend, I think it's bad for the state and I think it's bad for the religion. I think it's bad for both of them. I think it makes worse outcomes for both of these institutions.
Hmm. And I think for some Christians, it's hard for them to comprehend how not everybody's a Christian, right? Um, like I'm more agnostic. I don't ascribe to any religion. I grew up Christian. I grew up in a Lutheran church, and I questioned it from a very, very young age. I was like, this is bullshit. This is just a bunch of stories. This isn't like, something like that I have to ascribe to. I mean, I believe religion teaches us about morals and ethics, but there's other ways to learn that too.
Mhm.
Um, but now I've lost where I was going with my question.
You were
Um,
saying Christians kind of believe that they're the ones that can,
yes,
like, they can understand people not being Christian.
why you're not a Christian. Yes, yes. And so I think, in their mind, that is why religion should be part of making laws. And, like the abortion debate is a great debate of like, it's hard to get someone to debate taking religion out of that debate of abortion. It's often hard for them to like debate abortion. Um,
Mhm.
and it like the whole ICE thing going on right now, right?
Yeah.
And like there's what's the saying? There's no greater hate than Christian love. I love
Yeah.
that saying. And it's like like Jesus wouldn't be okay with this. Like the way that it's being handled, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
I
so
believe
it's just
so.
like I have a hard time understanding how they get so locked in to their religion, but yet like that's not what Jesus would do.
I think a lot of them, it feels like, so part of the issue that, so what, one thing that we're talking about in North America religion is we're talking about fundamentalist Christianity, which is actually very
Mm-hmm.
new. Um, so they believe, for example, I was just talking to my friend, his grandfather co-founded like a really important Christian college in America, but he's not a young earther. So they wouldn't let him teach anymore when they found out that he was not a young earther. And this idea of young earth comes from a literalist interpretation of Genesis, essentially, when nobody historically in the faith has ever engaged with Genesis in that way. If you look at the way the Catholics, if you look at the way most Christians have historically engaged with most of the books, they've understood that like Old Testament writings are written in mythological Eastern styles, right? And so you see this with the Greeks, right? The Greeks would write their histories, but they would mythologize their histories as well, right? And so you shouldn't be looking, especially if you look at the original language that Genesis is in. If you read that, it's poetry, right? I don't know about you. Typically, poetry isn't literal. It shouldn't be taken
Right.
literal. And so, a really big scourge that I think I see in North America is this like corruption and what I would call like, I would fundamentally call it heretical Christianity, where they insist that it is a scientific and historical accurate record in the way that we write science and we write history now, which is incredibly disrespectful of the original groups that were writing these things because this isn't how they thought about it. This isn't how they engaged with the world, right? They wrote myths and it was oral tradition originally. And so we get this very literalist interpretation of things that makes for very bad theology. And unsurprisingly, really bad theology leads to really, really bad political practice.
Mm. Hmm. It, you know, I, I like historically, anytime we've brought religion, like, oh gosh, what's the movie? The Most Hated Woman in the World. Have you seen
Mhm.
that movie?
I
Oh,
have.
such a good movie. Um, she was, I can't remember her name, but she fought for separation of religion in schools and not having to say prayers in schools. And she was an atheist. And then she started getting all the hate mail. Well, she got both actually. She got a lot of like support and a lot of hate. Um, and like the argument of freedom of speech. And we should have the freedom of speech in school to have prayer. And it's like, well, you do have that freedom. There's often religious like students have little prayer circles in school. It's just not required to say prayer in school, right? A public school.
Mhm.
Catholic school obviously would be a different situation, but
Yeah.
um, it's like we're not taking away your right to pray. You can pray sitting at your desk with your eyes closed, like, right? You don't have to be in an organized environment to pray.
Well,
Um,
more importantly, if you want to be, you should be able to choose that, right? Like, I
yes.
want Muslims to be able to go to Muslim schools. If they want
Hmm.
5 prayers a day, I don't want that in public school at all. But if they want to do it in schools, I don't care. That's fine. Catholic schools
Hmm.
can do prayers. That's totally fine. If you
Yes.
want Christian schools, there are Protestant Christian schools. Do Protestant Christian stuff there. But when it's a public education space, it's for everyone. We're not imposing our ideologies, which is why
Hmm.
people, understandably, on the right get upset when they feel the left is imposing certain ideologies. And it's frustrating on the left when the right is insisting on doing the same thing, right? Like all of us should just like take our hands out of the pot a little bit and be like, well, if you want your own private thing that's got your private ideology, make a school for it. Make it private and we can
Hmm.
do it. Go for it.
Hmm. Exactly. Yep. If you want your child to be learning Catholic values, send them to Catholic school or, you know, whatever religion. Agreed. Agreed. And what are your thoughts on, like you brought up Muslim and they pray it's more than 5 times a day, isn't it? Or is it five?
In Islam?
Yeah.
I believe they have 5 calls to prayer that
5.
yeah,
Um,
have to honor.
and so what are your thoughts on schools allowing a child to have an accommodation to go do their prayer?
I think it's fine if like the local area votes for that and has it. I don't think it should be like mandatory. Like in the same way, like I don't think that there should be a chapel for like the Christian kids to go to.
Hmm.
Again, if the because you guys have your schools based on like zips, which is crazy. But if your zip votes to have a chapel in your public school, that's fine. I don't
Oh,
care.
zip
If
code, you mean?
yeah, your zip code. If your zip code votes to have a area to do Islamic prayers, I don't really care. That's fine. That's fine with
Hmm.
me as long as like the local group is deciding it. So I'm not like opposed to these extra things. It's just like they're extra things. Like I personally wouldn't vote for it. I probably wouldn't vote for a chapel
Hmm.
I wouldn't. I just think it's a waste of money. I think that there's better areas in education that money is desperately needed. That like I frankly don't want to build these extra spaces. But if the community wants to, power to them, whatever.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what else do you see in Christian nationalism? Like where do you see this in this next, not this year's, not next week we have an election, but like in midterms. Where do you see that playing a role in midterms next year,
It's really tough. I
if
don't
any?
think so. Christian nationalism in like its strongest form is really unpopular. People don't like
Hmm.
it. People don't want
Yep.
monarchies. They actually
Hmm.
don't. My concern is there is an escalating growth on the right, particularly that is embracing anti-democratic policies.
Mm.
And right now, they're all working together because the main thing that they want is democracy to be eroded, right? So you've got the techno fascists, you've got like the Musk and the Palantir group and whatnot that want to see basically like, do you know who Moldbug is or Curtis
Mm-mm.
Yarvin? Okay.
No.
He's like an alt-right writer who's very much informing kind of the technocrat fascist space. They basically want a nation state to be like a business instead, and have like a
Yeah.
CEO and all these things. They want to run a nation like a business because that's
Yeah.
what they know. They will work with the Christian nationalists because Christian nationalists also want to see erosion of democracy. They don't
Right.
think that voters can be trusted. They think voters are stupid, which, to be fair, everyone thinks voters are stupid because we are all stupid, right?
Right.
55% of voters, when they walk out of the ballot box, don't actually know that Democrats are left and pro choice and Republicans are right and pro life. They have no idea, right? So like voters
That
barely know
seems
what's
like a
going on.
really high statistic. Wow.
It is really concerningly high.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is.
Yeah, most voters are extremely politically uninformed and they're not interested,
Yeah.
right? And so as the disinterest grows in our country, we've people are disinterested because they feel like there's no point in voting anyways.
Voice doesn't matter.
You
Yeah.
know, these anti-democratic groups are really politically sophisticated. They're extremely well funded. And yes, the techno-fascists in a reality would never actually be friends. They hate each other. They want nothing to
Right.
do with each other,
Right.
right? But it's the unholy like union that it's like Germany and Japan working together in World War II. Nothing about these countries says we like each other and agree. Japan doesn't have any issues with the Jews. They have no, in fact, Chinese is their issue, right? Japan is not obsessed with like the Aryan race and ultra nationalism and all these sorts of things. Like Japan is a very imperialist kind of like aggressive country, but they found unity because of mutual enemies, right? And I think that that's something that we're seeing with like the Christian nationalists working with the techno fascists is that they're really getting a lot of ground on the right. There's increasingly larger content creators who are explicit Christian nationalists who are on Piers Morgan like every other week.
Hmm.
Andrew Wilson is a really good example of somebody who is this type of person. And so they're increasingly getting mainstream. And so young people who are constantly looking for counterculture, there's a lot of young men being like, oh, you know what's cool? Being a Christian nationalist. And it's like, there's literally
Yeah.
nothing cool about that. You're just like lame at parties. But um, it's the current countercultural muse that
Yeah.
people like.
Yeah. And it's interesting what you said about um, how they like want a government run more like a business. And I think that's why Trump won 2016, because people saw him as somehow a brilliant businessman, somehow. Um,
Mm.
and they wanted that because they wanted him to be different. They wanted someone who's a businessman, not a politician. Um, but yet our country is political. So like, you know, yeah, I just think it's really interesting. I think that's how Trump won in 2016.
Mm. Yeah, possibly. I mean, people definitely view him as like somebody who will get the debt down and fix up all of the inefficiencies. And obviously, the debt's going up and things are
Well,
more
because
inefficient because you cut people that you actually need.
yeah, because that's what he did in his business. He wouldn't pay his bills. He just would not pay the people that did the work. And, like he's very unethical in everything he does. And so I don't know why anybody's surprised that he's turned out to be the type of president that he is.
Yeah.
Um, and how, he causes division amongst people, um, and just, incites hate. But yet, some people think he is such a good Christian and that he is like the coming of Jesus. And I can't wrap my head around that. Do you have any insights into that part of it? The that he's the coming of Jesus?
Oh, I don't know. They just say that. They just say that all the time. I don't know. The amount of times they've Christians have predicted like the end of times and that like this is the second coming of Christ.
Yeah, didn't Rapture, wasn't that supposed to be a few weeks ago?
It's like every 2 weeks. And so it's like, I don't know. It's just like the same stuff. There's a bunch of like MAGA people now that are splintering off, calling him specifically the Antichrist. It's just kind of like the fitting the world that you're trying to understand into
Yeah.
like the stories and narratives that you know and understand. That's like basically what it is to me.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. And the whole concept of, Trump loves the poorly educated. And going back to what you said earlier, like 55% of people don't even know what they just voted for.
Yep.
Um, that number actually really kind of blows my mind. But at the same time, I guess I'm not surprised because, I can't tell you the amount of people I meet just in general in life that are like, I don't get into politics. Like, I don't care about it. And it's like, but politics literally affect everything we do in this country.
Yeah.
Everything that we do or don't get to do are affected by political decisions. So, I'm always surprised that people don't take any time to educate themselves on it. And that's exactly what Trump is banking on, is that they don't know and they just take him at his word.
Yeah, well, I think like you've kind of got three categories of well, you kind of have two categories of people, right? You have some people born and raised blue or red, and they'll die blue and red,
Yeah.
and that's all they really know. And fundamentally, they haven't really earned their moral philosophy. They just grew up in it and have kind of
Hmm.
inherited it, right? And those people are usually going to be pretty lost in the sauce. Some of them move, but most of them don't. Then you've got like a big group of independents, and it's growing, especially with like younger generations who look at both parties and go, "Well, I hate all of you," right? And they do like the big
Yes.
brain.
Yes.
They're like the classic big brain, like, I don't do labels of politics. I think they're all bad. And you're like, okay, well, good job. Like, welcome to the sandbox. Yes, Machiavelli was right. If you participate in politics, your hands get dirty. There is a lot of corruption and problems in politics. And it
True.
also still affects you. And these things are not equal, right? Just because, if you have two kids fighting and they both did something bad, well, if one kid, the bad thing that they did was steal the other kid's toy and then push them when they tried to get it back, and the other kid, the bad thing that they did is try to grab the toy that they had stolen from them and then had a temper tantrum. Well, both the kids kind of did something bad. Maybe the other kid who's trying to get their toy back also pushed. But this is not equal, right? The kid who took the toy in the first place and then shoved the other kid has done something worse than the kid who just tried to take their toy back and was too aggressive in doing so, right? These are not equal. They both need consequences, but we shouldn't pretend like it feels like a lot of times like the independents will look at this situation and be like, well, both kids are bad. And it's like, okay, this is not, no, this is not how we
Hmm.
would deal with the situation. The kid who needs Like each of these children need a different type of reprimand, right? One of the reprimands is, well, when somebody does something rude to you and then they're aggressive about it, you should just go get a parent. Like at that point, it's out of your hands. You should, call for backup. To the other kid, it's don't steal toys, right? These are not the same types of conversations. And it feels like a lot of independents will go, well, they're both bad and I don't want to have to think about it. So, like, whatever, I
Hmm.
give up. And I get it. The propaganda machine is strong. Both sides are deceptive. Both sides are bad faith towards one another. So it can be really, really hard to know, like, how do you figure these things out? But the issue is that, like, if you don't, it'll impact you anyways, right? Medicaid and SNAP
Right.
cuts, they're going to affect you anyways. Your premiums going up if you're on Medicaid, that affects you,
Yep.
whether you voted or not. It doesn't matter. In fact, most people on Medicaid don't vote, right?
Yep.
Still going to affect you. So, like it's every politician's dream that we could get voter turnout to be higher. But I don't know. I mean, lots of things affect your life that people will just ignore for like ever. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it is. It is kind of mind blowing how many people just simply don't vote, period.
mhm, yeah.
And I know people and they're like, yeah, I don't vote. And like I have no opinion. And it's just like, oh, okay, well, you really can't complain then when your premiums go up. And they don't. Like that's the weird part of it. They just go with it. And I don't know. It blows my mind just a little bit that people can be that unconcerned with what's going on in their country and how it affects them or their loved ones, like I mean, pretty much everybody probably knows somebody that's on Medicare, right? Your parents, your grandparents. The whole food stamps thing, I just the amount of hate going around for people on food stamps is truly blowing my mind. And like, where have we lost compassion? Like, where have we gone off the rails here with this? Because do people take advantage of the system? Sure, but it's such a small percentage. Um, it's
Hmm.
not like everybody on food stamps is abusing the system. That is not the case.
It's
And
tiny.
it's tiny. Um, it's like you have to prove income. You have to prove things to be on food stamps. It's not like they just give it to you. And the amount that you get is so small for how much groceries cost.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a real huge problem if we can't get this figured out real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the hate is abundant and it also is effective. We've got this really unfortunate thing where Trump kind of eroded decorum and it worked.
Yeah.
And then everyone followed suit, right?
Yeah.
Like no one should look at the left right now and think that we're engaging in high levels of decorum either. You know, the type of reporting that happened during 2016 to 2020 about Trump was like oftentimes really extreme. It was like really extreme. Some of the things he deserved and some of the things he definitely didn't deserve, right? And then, we have these few years where we're free of Trump, and then we kind of forget about this. I think we keep being mean to conservatives. And I've realized on the left that people just forgot what a conservative was. I'm seeing like a lot of people being shocked. Like I'll outline like this is a pretty moderate conservative position, and they'll be like, "That's a crazy take." And I'm like, "What do you think a conservative is? Like, do you know what a conservative moderate position is? Because most people don't. Most people on the left, I've noticed, if you ask them, what do you think is the conservative position on immigration? They'll be like, like slowing it down and like having like safeguards. And I'm like, no, that's the liberal position. That's typically the liberal position on immigration that we want like reasonable vetting, but we want people who are able-bodied and skilled to come in because we love and welcome immigrants. We just want it done legally, and we want the bars for entry to be lower for the people that we want, right? Less high technical HB1s and maybe more like lower education requirements for HB1. No, nobody can even tell me what a conservative position on immigration is. I don't think most people know. And then when they hear it, they're like, well, that's an extremist. I'm like, that's not an extremist. The extremists are the isolationists, right? Like, so we've lost so much touch that I'll watch MAGA people describe liberals And they're just talking about agitative tankies, like communists, right? And it's like, that's not like any of the left. That's like a very tiny amount. And by the way, they hate us too. Like they don't like us either. They're definitely not voting for
Right.
Kamala.
Yeah.
Very unlikely, right? And so like we've completely lost touch with like what the other side actually even thinks because we've characterized each other so much.
Yeah.
But then we also have this unfortunate thing where the characterizing of the right that was happening, I think, for 8 years before the second term of Trump has now slowly just become the what the president is. The president is just like quite extreme on a lot of things. But again, who even knows what his opinion is? Because he's just doing what keeps him in power. Like, I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
Trump actually has a legitimate
He
political
or
position on
keeps us
anything.
distracted.
Yep, that too. Yep. Like, what does Trump actually politically think? I think he thinks, I like having power and I'd like more of it. I think that's
Yes.
about the beginning and end of his political opinions
Yeah.
that are
Yeah. And
real.
now he wants to just stay out of jail too. So
Yep, stay out of jail and amass millions, billions actually, billions
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Right? That's what he wants. And he's having a good time as the president. He's made a crap load of money. He's now arranged around him sycophants who will always say yes, despite the fact that they are utterly incompetent. With the Lindsay Halliday stuff, just like Halligan, I can't remember her last name. Lindsay Halligan. Lindsay Halligan. Do you know about the
Mm-mm.
lawyer leaks?
Oh,
Just it's an embarrassment. It's just like
yeah.
incompetence upon incompetence, like over and over again, that we're seeing from the firm. But it doesn't matter because she'll do what he wants her to. So
Yep.
she gets to keep her job. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. It's an interesting time for sure. And it'll be so curious to see what history books, 30, 40 years from now look like.
Yeah. And if they're allowed to
Because
write about it honestly.
I know that's sort of where I was going to is like what's actually going to make it into the into the history book and what's going to be erased and wiped out of the history book because we're seeing that happening too,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the main thing that I would say to like the left is like, don't assume the future is set. Like, don't assume that the history is not linear and neither is the future. Like, your
Right.
decisions impact the direction of the future. Um,
Mm,
your willingness to show up. The
yes.
left is we hamstring ourselves. As mean as we might, the conservatives complain about how mean we are to them, and we were pretty mean to them, and have been mean to them. We're really nasty to each other,
Yeah.
like really nasty to each other. We're probably about as mean to each other as we are to conservatives. Maybe a little bit more to conservatives, but like we're
Yep.
awful to each other. We won't support each other. We don't unify. We
Yep.
don't get in behind each other. And it's like, at least the
That's why we can't get
conservatives,
shit done.
we can't. Right. So it's like, if you are worried about this, what should you do? Well, you should vote with your attention and your dollars. Don't give attention to rage bait. Don't give attention to like MAGA trying to like insist lies. Like, let those tweets flop. Let them flop over and over and over. Don't even feel the need to take the bait. Ignore them. Right. Give money to grassroots political content and streamers and movements that you believe in.
Hmm.
Right. Don't go to the biggest streamers. Guess what? XQC and all these like large content creators, they don't need your money. Who does need your money? Small grassroots movements like UFA does, right?
Yeah.
Smaller, kind of unbought content creators need your attention and your time. Like, there's a way that you can do stuff just from your phone. Like, a lot of people don't
Yeah.
feel like there's anything they could do. Liking and retweeting and reposting
Hmm.
content creators who give positions that
Huge.
you support, that are standing by principles that you value, um, and want to work towards a better democracy, give them your time and attention. Don't give rage baiters. Don't give people that are rage baiting on your side, because we do it too. If
Yep.
if you want a better future.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And let's since you brought it up just a little bit, let's talk just a little bit about the UFA, the Unfuck America tour. And like I said, we're both part of that. And that's how we met. We went in Tampa.
Mhm.
Um, and how did you come to be involved with the UFA?
I a known chatter, a kind of back end clip guy named Thinking Monk, heard about UFA and really wanted to put it on multiple people in like the more Twitch pulse spaces radar. So I think he reached out to me, he reached out to Destiny. I think he reached out to a couple of other people, maybe it was just us two. And saw if we were interested and then connected me to Z. So I had a phone call with
Hmm.
Z. She kind of told me about what they were doing. We talked a bit about her cancellation that she was going through at the time, and kind of went forward from there. I liked what they were going for, which is like a big tent movement that will
Yeah.
be boots on ground, making content, supporting those types of content creators. Yeah, that's what I got up to.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there's really no other group doing what we're doing on the left. And, we're trying to get people out to vote. We're trying to get college students to register and hopefully get them to vote blue. Um, we're having Destiny and other creators are having debates on campuses. Um, And, it is interesting. People come up before or after to talk to us and they're like, I had never thought of things this way until Destiny said this or that. And so, it really is having an impact and it's making a difference. And so, giving money towards an organization such as the UFA, which is run under the National Ground Game PAC, um, opposed to just like blindly giving it to the DNC. We're
Definitely don't
actually
do
out
that.
here doing the work. Yeah, definitely don't do that.
Yeah,
Um,
don't do that. Don't give it to them.
People think we're funded from the DNC, but we are not.
We are
Not
not.
at all. So
No.
yeah, it's lots and lots of small donations that help our tour to continue. So um, you can donate through the link in the show notes or through either of our links in our bios to help support the UFA tour. Because we got a lot more work to do. That's for sure.
Mhm.
You have anything to add to that, Kyla?
Yeah, no, support local groups that you believe in. I think there's a bunch of local abundance chapters starting up that are really interested in like local small projects for like
Mhm.
improving like quality of life there. So definitely like look into that. There's a bunch of really cool ones in a lot of like states that are experiencing a lot of like manufacturing ghost towns. There's a lot of like abundance chapters starting in those cities to try to kind of revitalize the population and bring back jobs and bring back community. So yeah, there's so many really cool small initiatives. Honestly, I've discovered ChatGPT is awesome at finding local stuff and local initiatives. Like just ask ChatGPT, like what are local liberal grassroots initiatives or like nonprofits in my area? And just like read about them, see which ones you drive with. There's so many, but you're never going to see them because they don't know how to compete in like the social media rat race.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you have to choose what you are doing with your attention. You really do,
Yep.
because that's what everyone is desperately trying to rob from you.
Well, Kyla, thank you so much for being here. This is such a good conversation. Um, and if people want to connect with you, you are not so erudite on most platforms.
Oh.
And what is your main, is YouTube your main?
I'd say YouTube,
Yeah.
YouTube and Twitch are probably my bigger ones.
Hmm. But
Twitter,
you're
I'm
also
really
on
big on
Instagram,
Twitter.
TikTok.
I do a lot of Twitter posting. I'm on Instagram. My TikTok's pretty dead. I mean, I post there every day, but like TikTok, I don't know how to use baby words for TikTok, so I always get slammed with TOS. I just don't know. I don't know what the baby words are. I don't know. I can't say pew pew. I can't make myself do it. So
I'm constantly getting strikes on TikTok as well. I'm very not I don't understand.
yeah, I just want to talk about adult talk
I
concepts with adult
know.
words.
I know.
Yeah, yeah. So
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. This has been great conversation, and I'll see you on the next tour stop.
yeah, yeah. I'll see you. I think at Amfest. I'll be at Amfest next.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is a wrap for this episode of Unfiltered Dissent. If today's conversation resonated with you, please share this episode and subscribe so that you never miss an update. And if you would like to support the Unfuck America tour, please use the Act Blue link in my show notes. It truly takes a village to help support a tour like this. And also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Amy Zelmer for more content, conversations, and ways to get involved. So until next time, stay bold, stay loud, and never stop questioning the narrative. Because when we speak up, we don't just resist, we create change.